Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with charm stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Serena Monroe was born into a world of glittering chandeliers and polished marble floors. Her father, Victor Monroe, was the face of a multimillion-dollar enterprise, and their mansion, set behind tall wrought iron gates, exemplified wealth and power. From an outsider's perspective, Serena's life was flawless. She wore designer clothes, attended exclusive private schools, and even had a small, ornate music box encrusted with pink pearls on her bedside table, a gift from Victor himself on her 10th birthday. But for all the trinkets, dresses, and lavish parties, the love that truly mattered was painfully absent. Victor was distant, cold in moments that should have been intimate. A simple hug or the words, "I'm proud of you," were as rare as snow in summer. Whenever Serena tried to share her achievements, a high score on a test, an award at school, she'd find him locked away in his study, more consumed with business deals than his daughter's life. The sharp shift happened when Serena was around 12, shortly after her mother passed away from a sudden illness. Before that, though he was often busy, Victor had still shown flickers of warmth, an affectionate pat on her head, a gentle smile at the dinner table. But grief changed him. He withdrew, throwing himself into work, leaving Serena in the vast mansion with tutors and staff who reported every detail back to him, yet never offered genuine companionship. When Serena was 14, a new presence entered their home, Olivia. She arrived unannounced one day in a sleek black car, stepping out in a white designer dress that emphasized her undeniable elegance. From the moment she walked through the door, Serena noticed how Victor's eyes lit up, a light that had been extinguished since her mother's death. Olivia quickly established herself in their home, moving into the master bedroom and reorganizing the staff. She seemed determined to erase any lingering memories of Serena's mother. Serena tried to welcome Olivia at first, hoping her arrival might also rekindle Victor's affection for the family. Yet the tension only thickened. Olivia's kindness wore a brittle edge. She'd buy Serena expensive gifts, bracelets, shoes, even a gold locket, but Serena never felt they came from a place of genuine care. Instead, it felt like Olivia was trying to showcase her superiority. "I'm your new mother figure, and you will respect me." Victor, relieved to have found someone to share his life with, turned an increasingly blind eye to Olivia's dismissive treatment of Serena. The staff adapted quickly to Olivia's demands, terrified of crossing her. Serena found herself caught between a father who no longer saw her and a stepmother who wanted her gone. Still, Serena held on to hope that Victor would remember how much he once loved her. In her eyes, she was still the little girl who would sneak into his office to ask him to play dolls for a few minutes. She believed, desperately, that the love buried under his grief might still resurface. That belief crumbled the day she overheard the conversation that would change her life forever. It was a stormy evening. Rain pounded against the tall windows of the mansion, and thunder rattled the glass panes. Serena had been reading in her bedroom, an old fairy tale about a princess locked in a tower, when an urgent whisper drifted down the hall. She recognized Olivia's voice, sharp and insistent. Victor's deeper baritone responded, muffled yet agitated. Curious and worried, Serena tiptoed to the door, carefully turning the knob so it wouldn't make a sound. She slipped into the hallway, following the heated voices until she was outside Victor's study, just a crack of light beneath the closed door. Her heart pounded as she leaned closer, pressing her ear gently to the wood. Through the thin barrier, she heard Olivia clearly. "She's a liability, Victor. Her presence complicates everything." There was a heavy pause, then Victor's voice, low and troubled. "Olivia, she's my daughter. She's all I have left." "Exactly," Olivia snapped. "She's your tie to the past, to your ex-wife. Our life would be simpler without her. I'm tired of tiptoeing around her. She's almost an adult, she can fend for herself." Serena's breath caught in her throat. Send her away. The very idea churned her stomach. Despite the thunderstorm raging outside, her palms broke into a cold sweat. "She's only 16, Victor protested weakly. Yet there was little conviction in his tone, as though he were already surrendering. "Then send her to boarding school. Or give her a small sum of money and push her out. I don't care." I just don't want her in my home. Not anymore. Lightning flashed through the hallway window, illuminating Serena's reflection in the polished floor. She waited for her father's strong refusal, for him to defend his only child. Instead, she heard him sigh heavily. "Fine," he said, his voice laced with resignation. "I'll do it." A clap of thunder shook the house. Serena felt as though the floor had fallen out from beneath her. She swallowed the sob, threatening to escape. Before she could register the enormity of the betrayal, she heard footsteps approaching the study door. Panicked, she darted back down the hall, slipping into the nearest guest room. Her heart hammered against her ribs. In that moment, rain pounding outside, tears stinging her eyes, Serena realized she could no longer cling to the illusion that Victor would protect her. Her father had just chosen Olivia's comfort over his daughter's well-being. The betrayal became real the following morning. Before dawn had fully broken, Victor knocked on Serena's door. He didn't look angry or furious. He looked hollow, as if moving through a grim task without emotion. "Serena," he began, avoiding her gaze. "There's something I need to tell you." She stared up at him, eyes rimmed red from a sleepless night. "I already know," she whispered. He paused, confusion flickering across his face. "You?" "I heard you," she said flatly, arms crossed defensively. "In your study with Olivia." A swirl of guilt, shame, and something resembling pity mixed in Victor's expression, but none of it formed into words of comfort. Instead, he stepped aside, revealing Olivia behind him, hands folded neatly in front of her. On the floor beside them was a garbage bag, half filled with Serena's clothes and personal items. "This isn't something I wanted," Victor murmured, though his tone betrayed only a hint of regret. Serena's lips trembled. Part of her wanted to scream, to fight back and demand answers. But a deeper instinct, fueled by heartbreak, told her it was pointless. They had already decided her fate. "Here," Olivia said, tossing the garbage bag at her feet with a glare that held no sympathy. "Pack what you need. We'll call for a taxi to take you wherever you decide to go." Serena blinked, stunned. "Where I decide to go? I'm 16. How can you do this?" Silence. Victor refused to meet her eyes. Olivia turned on her heel and left, the click of her high heels echoing through the corridor. After a long, tense moment, Victor sighed, bent down, and picked up the bag. He extended it to Serena, his gaze downcast. "Please," he said softly. "Just go. We'll give you a little money to start. But you have to leave." Serena took the bag with trembling hands. She looked around her room, her safe place, the only home she'd ever known. The plush pink rug, the shelves of childhood books, the music box on her bedside table. Memories crashed over her, dancing with her mother in that very space, painting her nails with friends. Now, it all felt meaningless. Gathering what few essentials she could, she placed the music box on top, a final keepsake of the mother she lost. Then, with tears threatening to overflow, she followed Victor down the grand staircase. In the foyer, Olivia waited by the door, arms crossed. "Hurry up," she snapped. "The taxi will be here any minute." Serena felt the bitter sting of betrayal spread through her chest. She stepped outside, bag in hand, her eyes on the mansion's gates. The morning air was cool against her face, yet the shame of being tossed aside burned hot in her veins. Victor pressed a small envelope into her hand. "Here," he said. "It's not much, but it should help you get started." He trailed off, as though searching for words that might erase the hurt he had inflicted. But no words came. The gates opened with a groan, and Serena stared one last time at the only home she'd ever known. With a leaden heart, she turned away and walked down the driveway, each step echoing with finality. Behind her, Olivia closed the gates with a loud clang, sealing Serena's fate. By noon that day, Serena was roaming through the city with no clear direction. The small envelope of money had turned out to be just a couple $100s, enough to afford a dingy motel for a few nights at most, but nowhere near enough to rent an apartment. She tried to swallow her pride and call a few school friends, but none answered. She suspected Olivia might have spread rumors or paid them off. Or perhaps they were just too busy with their own lives to risk the wrath of Victor Monroe. Desperate, Serena found herself on the outskirts of town by dusk, lugging her garbage bag through darkening streets. The city lights flickered on, illuminating dirty sidewalks and cold, concrete buildings. At one intersection, she saw a pawn shop and hesitated, wondering if she should pawn her mother's music box. The thought twisted her heart in knots. She couldn't do it. Not yet. Several hours passed, and her feet ached. The neon signs of late-night diners cast harsh glows on puddles of water from the earlier storm. She glanced into those diners, seeing families sharing meals, couples chatting over coffee, and waitresses rushing between tables. A wave of loneliness and hunger hit her, but she lacked the courage to walk in and spend the little money she had. Eventually, she stumbled upon a deserted parking lot with an old, rusted car left abandoned against a crumbling wall. The windows were broken, the tires flat. Trash littered the ground around it. Yet to Serena, it was the closest thing to a sanctuary she could find. She tugged on the door handle. To her surprise, it creaked open. With her heart racing, afraid someone might catch her, she slipped inside and shut it behind her. The car smelled of mildew and old grease, but it offered shelter from the night's chill. Clutching her bag, she curled up in the back seat. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her she hadn't eaten since morning. Exhaustion and heartbreak made her eyelids heavy. Between the adrenaline and the fear, she wasn't sure she would ever fall asleep. But sleep came, fitful, haunted by dreams of Olivia's smirking face and Victor's cold stare. Tears slipped down her cheeks in the dark, and for a moment, she wondered if she'd ever feel safe again. Sunlight filtered in through the filthy windows of the abandoned car, waking Serena abruptly. She rubbed her eyes, struggling to remember where she was. The reality hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a nightmare she could escape. This was her life now. Her stomach rumbled again, sharper this time. She needed food. Brushing off her clothes, a wrinkled sweater and jeans, she stepped onto the pavement. A wave of nausea from hunger threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it aside, determined to find something to eat. She wandered through side streets, scanning for places that might offer free meals. At first, her pride stopped her from asking. But desperation soon overshadowed embarrassment. She approached a grocery store, politely asking if they had any day-old bread or leftover produce to spare. The manager grimaced and shook his head, muttering something about not wanting loiterers. Embarrassed, she continued down the road until she found a small bakery. The aroma of fresh bread made her dizzy with longing. She meekly asked if they had any samples or unsold pastries from the previous day. The owner bluntly told her to leave before he called security. After hours of repeated rejections, Serena found herself behind a diner with a dented metal dumpster. Her body moved almost on autopilot. She was so hungry that the mere thought of finding scraps inside made her stomach growl. She peered inside, spotting a discarded paper bag. Trying not to gag at the smell, she carefully retrieved it. Inside was half a sandwich, the bread a bit stale, but edible. She was about to take a bite when a voice shouted behind her, "Hey! Get out of here!" A middle-aged man wearing a stained apron ran toward her. Startled, Serena clutched the half-sandwich and sprinted away, ignoring his continued shouts. She didn't stop running until she reached a deserted alley, heart pounding. Only then did she allow herself to sink against the brick wall, tears of shame falling as she devoured the sandwich. Fate seemed to intervene when, a day later, Serena found herself wandering near the same diner, just not at the dumpster. She was gaunt and trembling, hungry yet again, but she wasn't sure she could go on rifling through trash. As she walked by the front windows, a gentle voice called out to her. "Hey, sweetheart. You all right?" Serena turned, expecting another harsh reprimand. Instead, she saw an older woman with salt and pepper hair, wearing a tidy apron and a concerned expression. Her name tag read, Miss Lila. "Come inside," Miss Lila insisted. "I saw you the other day, out back. You looked like you needed help." Serena's cheeks burned with shame, but the warmth in the woman's voice disarmed her. Inside the diner, the smell of bacon and coffee was nearly overwhelming. Miss Lila guided her to a small booth in the corner, where the overhead light flickered slightly. Without a word, Miss Lila brought her a cup of warm tea and a plate of scrambled eggs and toast. Serena hesitated only for a moment before digging in. The food was simple, but it felt like a feast after days of hunger. As she ate, Miss Lila sat down across from her. "What's your name, honey?" "Serena," she managed between bites. "Serena," the woman repeated softly, as though testing the sound on her tongue. "You look too young to be out here on your own. What happened?" Serena opened her mouth, but the words stuck in her throat. She didn't want to revisit the pain of Victor's betrayal. Yet something about Miss Lila's gentle gaze coaxed the truth from her. She haltingly explained she'd been kicked out, that her father no longer wanted her. When she finished, Miss Lila reached out and patted her hand. "I'm sorry you've been through so much. If you need a place to clean up or a meal, you come here, all right?" Tears gathered at the corners of Serena's eyes. I don't know how to thank you." Miss Lila smiled. "Well, if you really want to thank me, you can help me keep this diner running smoothly. A little cleaning, some dishwashing. How about it? I'll pay you for your time and give you a meal whenever you need." For the first time since being thrown out, Serena felt a glimmer of hope. Though the job was small and the pay modest, it was something. She nodded fervently, voice shaky. "Yes. I'd love that." Miss Lila rose from the booth, the overhead light reflecting kindness in her eyes. "Welcome aboard, Serena." That evening, Serena worked until closing, cleaning tables and washing dishes. The tasks felt oddly comforting, routine, purposeful. Miss Lila slipped a few extra dollars into her hand at the end of the shift and packed a to-go box of leftovers. "Stay safe out there," she whispered. "And come back tomorrow morning. We open at 6. Serena thanked her and left, the city streets now dark and quiet. She clutched her garbage bag closer, along with the food. Her mind flashed to the old car she'd been sleeping in. Maybe, she thought, she could upgrade to a motel soon, at least for a night's rest in a proper bed. If she saved enough from the diner, perhaps she could piece her life together bit by bit. Turning down a lonely alley, she listened to the distant hum of traffic. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps behind her. She quickened her pace, but the footsteps matched her speed. Anxiety flared in her chest. She glanced over her shoulder, catching sight of 3 men creeping closer. Their eyes were predatory, their smirks unsettling. The leader, tall, with a slick ponytail, stepped forward. "Where you runnin' to, girl? We just want to talk." Serena's heart thundered. She clutched her bag, ready to sprint. But the men formed a loose semicircle, cutting off her escape. Panic surged, and she realized, with grim clarity, that nobody else was around to help. One of them reached out, fingers curled around her arm. "Don't be like that. We'll show you a good time." Before Serena could scream, a sudden shout rang out, "HI! Back off!" A figure strode forward, a man with a rough, streetwise appearance. He wore a worn leather jacket, and his posture exuded confidence. Without hesitating, he lunged at the man gripping Serena's arm, shoving him backwards. Serena seized her chance, darting behind her unknown savior. The alley erupted into chaos. The tall man cursed, throwing a wild punch. Serena's rescuer dodged it swiftly, countering with a hard strike to his jaw. The other 2 men, realizing they were outmatched, pulled the leader to his feet and stumbled away, shouting threats over their shoulders. Serena stood trembling, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her rescuer turned to her, breathing heavily. A faint bruise had started forming on his cheek. Despite his rugged exterior, there was an unexpected gentleness in his eyes. "You all right?" he asked, voice low and calm. Unable to form words, Serena nodded, tears welling up from the terror of the encounter. He extended a hand to steady her. "Name's Damon. And you?" "Serena," she stammered. He nodded, eyes scanning the alley as though expecting more trouble. "You shouldn't be out here alone." With that single statement, the course of Serena's life shifted again. The next morning, Serena's nerves were still frayed from the alleyway assault. Despite the lingering shock, She forced herself to get up at dawn to head back to Miss Lila's diner. On her way, she noticed Damon leaning against a streetlight, as though waiting for her. "Hey," he greeted in a hushed tone. "Figured you might need someone watching your back." Surprised, Serena looked him over. The bruise on his cheek had darkened, proof of last night's altercation. I can handle myself." He raised an eyebrow, skepticism clear. "Sure you can." Then he shrugged. "I'm not here to babysit you. But if you want to survive out here, you might need some pointers. Once the group finds an easy target, they don't give up." A chill ran down Serena's spine. She knew he was right. As uncomfortable as she felt around Damon, she had no reason to doubt his sincerity. He had, after all, saved her life. She hesitated. "I have to get to work," she said softly. "Miss Lila expects me." "Work?" Damon echoed, curiosity piqued. "Didn't figure you for someone with a job. Most runaways just drift." "I'm not a runaway," Serena corrected, bristling. "I was kicked out." He studied her face, noting the pain lurking behind her defiance. "Tell you what," he said, pushing off the lamppost. "You go do your job. But when your shift ends, find me. I'll show you how to make some quick cash without scrounging in dumpsters or washing dishes all day. Might not be glamorous, but it'll keep you alive." For a brief moment, Serena considered dismissing him entirely. But the word alive struck a chord. She nodded, exhaling shakily. "Fine." Later that day, after wiping down every table, vacuuming crumbs from under the booths, and scrubbing dishes in the cramped kitchen, Serena collapsed onto a stool, exhausted. Miss Lila handed her a small paycheck and a to-go container. "Don't work too hard, honey," she warned gently. Serena offered a grateful smile. If it weren't for Miss Lila, she might have starved. The older woman's kindness felt like a fragile lifeline in a chaotic world. After finishing her shift, Serena made her way to the spot where Damon had said he'd be, a deserted corner near an abandoned warehouse. Sure enough, he was there, leaning against a graffiti-covered wall, puffing on a cigarette. When he saw her, he stubbed the cigarette out and nodded. "Ready." Serena crossed her arms. "Ready for what?" A slow grin spread across his face. "For the hustle." Damon's idea of the hustle turned out to be an intricate dance of street smarts, haggling, and keen observation. That evening, he walked Serena through back alleys and deserted lots where people often dumped old electronics, furniture, and other items they saw as junk. "See that TV?" Damon pointed to a busted flat screen leaning against a chain-link fence. "It might look worthless, but there are parts inside you can sell if you know where to look." Serena frowned, curious. "I'm not exactly an electronics expert." "You don't have to be. You just need to know what people pay for," Damon explained. "Power cords, circuit boards, sometimes even the frame. People repair or reuse the parts. The trick is flipping 'em quick." They spent hours rummaging through discarded items, broken laptops, old chairs, spare bike parts. Damon showed her how to assess condition, clean them up, and negotiate quick sales to local secondhand stores or pawn shops. Some days, the payoff was meager, but occasionally they'd stumble upon a gem, a barely damaged cell phone that could be fixed or a piece of antique furniture with hidden value. One afternoon, Damon demonstrated his negotiation skills at a small pawn shop. He and Serena had found a rusted vintage clock that, at a glance, appeared worthless. But Damon recognized the brand, an old collectible. Inside the shop, the owner initially offered them a paltry sum. Damon feigned disinterest, gesturing to Serena as though they had better options. The pawn shop owner, not wanting to lose the potential sale, raised the offer. Damon shrugged coolly until the owner nearly doubled it. Finally, Damon accepted. They walked out with enough money to cover food, some cheap clothes, and even bus fare if needed. Serena was impressed. "You're surprisingly good at this," she remarked. "Survival skill," Damon replied simply. "The streets teach you fast. Either sink or swim." Over the weeks, Serena's confidence grew. She learned to spot a potentially valuable item from a block away and to negotiate firmly. She kept her day job at Miss Lila's diner, which provided a small but steady income, while using Damon's tips to supplement her earnings. For the first time since being kicked out, she felt a sense of empowerment, a glimmer of control over her destiny. Yet for all their financial progress, Serena remained cautious. Damon's past was murky. He never talked about his family or where he'd come from. She sensed he had ties to people less benevolent than he was with her. When she asked direct questions, he'd deflect with jokes or change the subject. Still, she couldn't deny that Damon's guidance had saved her from the worst of the streets. She no longer slept in the abandoned car, having saved enough to rent a tiny room in a run-down hostel. It wasn't luxury, but it was a step forward, a real bed, a small lamp, and a lock on the door. One evening, as they parted ways after a successful flip, Serena felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything." Damon studied her face, then shrugged. "Don't thank me yet, kid. There's still more to learn." Just when Serena began to feel secure, reality reminded her how fragile her gains were. She had been stashing her spare money in a crevice behind a broken tile in her hostel room, paranoid about keeping it in a bank or carrying it all on her. Over the course of a month, she'd managed to save a few $100s, a small fortune to her now. One night, after her shift to the diner, she returned to her room and immediately checked her hiding spot. Her heart dropped. The envelope was gone. In its place was a torn piece of paper, likely from a bill or receipt, with a single word scrawled, "Thanks." Trembling, Serena tore the room apart, desperately hoping the envelope had simply fallen out. But it wasn't there. Someone had found her stash and stolen it all. Her first reaction was anger. She wanted to hunt down whoever had done this and claw back her money. But the hostel was full of transient faces. She had no idea who might be responsible. Sorrow set in, heavy and cold, as she sank onto the bed. All that hard work, long nights, scrubbing dishes at the diner, dealing with sketchy negotiations, rummaging through trash, gone in an instant. She remained there for hours, tears sliding down her cheeks. Eventually, she curled up under the thin blanket, her mind drifting to the moment her father had forced her out. She recalled the day she told herself she would never cry about that again. Yet here she was, alone, broke, and vulnerable. In the morning, she relayed the news to Damon. He took it stoically, but his jaw tightened. "That's the streets for you," he said grimly. "No pity. No mercy." "How do I start over?" she asked, voice quivering. Part of her wanted him to provide reassurance, to say something like, "Don't worry, I'll get it back for you." But deep down, she knew no such miracle existed. "You just do," he responded with a fierce certainty. "You get back up, hustle harder, hide your money better. You don't give up." It wasn't the comfort she hoped for, but it was a harsh truth she needed to hear. That day, she returned to the diner, washing dishes until her fingers pruned. Then, after sunset, she combed the deserted streets with Damon, searching for salvageable goods. She refused to break, refused to let that thief's victory become her downfall. At the end of that exhausting day, Serena collapsed onto her lumpy hostel bed. Clutching her mother's music box, her last precious memento, she whispered, "I won't fail again. I promise." The theft of her savings ignited a new determination in Serena. She grew bolder in her work at the diner, asking Miss Lila more about business operations, how inventory was tracked, how the diner priced its meals. She absorbed every piece of information with the thirst of someone who recognized the value of knowledge. At night, Damon was impressed by her newfound drive. While he guided her through the hustle on the streets, she also started reading old business and finance books she found in used bookstores or free libraries. She'd stay up late in her hostel room, flipping through pages on entrepreneurship, marketing, and repair manuals for electronics. "What's gotten into you?" Damon asked one night as he watched her leaf through a battered, starting a small business guide under the flickering light of a street lamp. "I'm just tired of scraping by," Serena replied resolutely. "I want more than just surviving. I want to thrive. And I want to do it my way." He smirked. "Aim high, huh?" She met his gaze, eyes shining with fierce determination. "Why not? I have nothing to lose anymore. That shift in mindset changed everything. She began systematically repairing items rather than just selling them in damaged condition. She scoured online forums, using public library computers, to learn basic repairs for phones and laptops. In her hostel room, she'd spread out the devices she'd collected and methodically test each component. Missing screws were replaced, cracked screens carefully swapped with cheap replacements found on eBay. Her day job at the diner was still her financial anchor, keeping her fed and paying for her room. But each night, she invested more effort into her mini-business of flipping items. She started making connections at local electronics repair shops, forging relationships that allowed her to purchase spare parts at discounted prices. The more she learned, the more she wanted to learn. Any free moment, she spent brainstorming ways to sell items faster, or for higher profit. Her mother's music box remained a silent witness to her late-night sessions, a reminder of the family she'd lost and the motivation for the empire she wanted to build. Little by little, her savings began to grow again. This time, she was extremely cautious, splitting it among several hiding spots, a bit under her hostel mattress, some taped inside an old book, and a bit more tucked into her sock drawer. She wouldn't be caught off guard again. After one particularly good week, where she sold a repaired laptop for a tidy profit, she made a silent vow, "I'll never be powerless again." One afternoon, a man limped into the diner with a laptop under his arm. He was a regular customer, known to Miss Lila as Old Joe. Serena overheard him complaining that the laptop had stopped working and he couldn't afford the repairs quoted by a major electronics store. Her ears perked up. She approached him cautiously. "Maybe I can fix it for you," she offered. He raised a skeptical eyebrow. You're just a kid." She summoned her courage. "I've been fixing computers on the side. I might be able to do it cheaper than any shop in town." Old Joe hesitated, glancing at Miss Lila. The diner owner nodded encouragingly. "Give her a chance, Joe. She's smarter than you think." Grumbling a bit, Old Joe handed the laptop to Serena. "All right, but if you fry it completely, you're paying me back." With quiet confidence, Serena took the laptop home that evening. She spent hours disassembling it, carefully cleaning the components. Upon examining the motherboard, she found a small part that had short-circuited. Using her limited resources and knowledge gleaned from online forums, she replaced the defective piece with a salvaged component from another broken laptop. 3 days later, she returned it to Old Joe, who tested it in the diner booth. To his astonishment, it booted up flawlessly. "How much do I owe you?" he asked, voice revealing both gratitude and embarrassment. Serena quoted a price that was fair yet profitable for her work. Old Joe handed over the money, shaking his head in amazement. "You're going places, kid." That simple repair job sparked a chain reaction. Word spread among the diner's patrons that the waitress who cleans tables could fix computers and phones. Gradually, Serena found herself with more side projects, more devices to fix. Each successful repair fueled her ambitions. One day, she stumbled upon a broken laptop for just $20 in a thrift store. Using the same techniques, she patched it up and sold it online for $200. The transaction felt like a revelation. If she could do this once, she thought, she could do it 100 times, maybe even 1,000. A door to a new world of possibility had opened. Serena's budding confidence led her to reach out for help. She met a girl at the diner named Tanya, who appeared to be around her age. Tanya had recently started working there part-time, and they bonded over late-night cleaning shifts. Like Serena, Tanya had a tough background. She spoke of an unreliable mother and absent father. A friendship blossomed as they traded stories. One evening, Serena confided in Tanya about her electronics flipping venture. "I want to expand," she explained. "Buy broken items in bulk, repair them, and sell them for a profit. But I need a partner, someone who can handle the selling while I manage the repairs." Tanya's eyes glittered with excitement. "I'm in," she said enthusiastically. "We can do this together. Imagine how much money we could make." Feeling a camaraderie she'd missed since leaving her old life, Serena poured her heart into the plan. She shared her contacts, who sold cheap parts, which pawn shops paid the most, even the best flea markets for offloading items quickly. Over a few weeks, they managed a few small deals, turning a tidy profit. One afternoon, Serena arrived at the diner, eager to discuss the next step with Tanya. But Tanya never showed up. Worried, Serena tried calling her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Days passed with no contact. Panic set in when Serena attempted to reach their suppliers, only to be told that Tanya had already come by to negotiate deals under her own name. Shock and betrayal coursed through Serena's veins. Tanya had vanished, taking Serena's entire blueprint for the business with her. She even convinced some of the suppliers to work exclusively with her, painting Serena as unreliable. The blow was devastating. Tanya had seemed genuine, a possible friend in a lonely world. Now, Serena realized she had once again been naive. The lesson stung. Trust was a luxury, and on these streets, it could cost you dearly. Miss Lila noticed the heartbreak etched on Serena's face as she swept the diner floor that evening. "Honey, you look like you just lost your best friend," she commented softly. Serena choked back tears. "I think I did." Still reeling from Tanya's betrayal, Serena dived deeper into her repairs, refusing to let another setback destroy her. It was during one of these repair sessions, she was seated at the diner's counter, carefully tinkering with a broken phone, that a distinguished older man caught sight of her. He wore a tailored suit and had an air of quiet affluence. While sipping his coffee, he observed Serena's nimble fingers and serious expression. Intrigued, he finally spoke up. "Excuse me, young lady. What are you doing there?" Serena glanced up, a hint of caution in her eyes. "Fixing a phone. It belongs to a waitress here." He leaned closer, curiosity piqued. "You're not using any fancy equipment, but you seem quite adept. May I see?" Reluctantly, Serena passed him the phone's motherboard. He studied it intently, then looked at her with a curious smile. "Where did you learn this?" "Self-taught," she replied, shrugging as though it was no big deal. Inside, she was both proud and nervous. He introduced himself as Malcolm Everett, an investor and entrepreneur. "I'm always on the lookout for new talent, especially those who show initiative and skill. You fix electronics often." She explained her side hustle, buying broken devices, repairing them, reselling them online. A spark lit up in Malcolm's eyes. "I like your spirit," he said after she finished. "I've helped launch several startups, and I see potential in you." Serena's heart fluttered. She had been betrayed before, so she remained guarded. But something in Malcolm's demeanor suggested genuine interest. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a checkbook. Scribbling quickly, he handed her a check made out to cash for $5,000. "I want you to use this," he said, "to see what you can do on a slightly bigger scale. If you manage to turn a profit, come find me. I'll consider investing more." Serena stared at the check in disbelief. $5,000 was more money than she'd ever held in her life. "Why?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Malcolm smiled kindly. "Because sometimes, the right opportunity at the right time can change a life. And I believe in paying it forward." He handed her a business card with his number. "Call me when you're ready." Before she could fully process what had just happened, he placed a crisp $50 bill on the diner table to cover his coffee, stood, and departed. Serena watched him go, stunned. Clutching the check, she felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. This was a chance to jumpstart her business dreams. But it was also a huge responsibility. If she failed, or if Malcolm turned out to have hidden motives, she could lose everything again. Steeling herself, she tucked the check into her pocket, silently vowing not to let this opportunity slip through her fingers. Bolstered by Malcolm's check, Serena ventured into the next phase of her electronics repair hustle. She first set up an online storefront, using a free platform she'd read about in her numerous business books. She then sourced bulk lots of broken phones and laptops from a larger supplier, paying careful attention to keep her costs low. Each day, she'd wake up before dawn, work her morning shift to the diner, and then spend the afternoons and late nights repairing devices in a cramped garage space she'd rented. Damon occasionally popped by, offering a cynical grin and some help carrying boxes. Though they never labeled each other as friends, the mutual respect between them remained. Money slowly began to trickle in. Serena would list the repaired items on online marketplaces, carefully describing each product's condition and guaranteeing a certain level of functionality. Customers started to take notice. Her items were cheaper than factory-fresh devices, but they worked perfectly for most people's needs. Every profit she made, she reinvested. She upgraded her tools, a higher-quality soldering iron, better diagnostic software. She expanded her inventory, taking on more diverse electronics like cameras and gaming consoles. Her room at the hostel quickly became too small for her expanding operation. 3 months later, she had tripled Malcolm's initial investment. Giddy and nervous, she dialed his number, voice shaking slightly when he answered. "Hi, Mr. Everett. It's Serena, from the diner. I have some news." He invited her to meet him at a swanky uptown cafe. Feeling underdressed in her plain sweater, Serena arrived clutching a neatly organized folder of her financial statements, simple spreadsheets, receipts, and sales records. When Malcolm saw the numbers, a knowing smile spread across his face. "You've done well," he remarked, sipping an espresso. "Very well, indeed." Serena explained how she planned to scale further, to open a real repair shop rather than operating out of a garage. She spoke with such passion that a few nearby patrons glanced over, intrigued by her excitement. When she finished, Malcolm set down his cup. "How much do you need to take it to the next level?" She hesitated, mentally calculating. "Maybe $50,000 would allow me to lease a proper space, hire a small team, and market the business locally." Without batting an eye, Malcolm nodded. "Draw up a formal proposal, and we'll talk terms. I'm prepared to invest if I like what I see." Serena could hardly believe her ears. Victor Monroe's daughter, the girl who'd once scrounged for food in dumpsters, was on the verge of securing a substantial investment. That night, she lay in bed, her mind racing with new possibilities. She pictured the day she'd no longer just survive but thrive, her own business, her own destiny. And perhaps, in the quiet corners of her heart, she imagined Victor seeing her success, realizing his grave mistake in casting her aside. Serena was at the diner, finalizing her investment proposal on her laptop, when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, she ignored such calls, suspecting telemarketers. But something compelled her to answer this one. "Hello," she said, slightly distracted as she typed. There was silence for a moment, then a hesitant voice she hadn't heard in nearly 2 years. "Serena? It's your father, Victor." Everything around her seemed to slow. She stopped typing, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure everyone in the diner could hear it. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone icy. Victor's voice cracked. I need your help." 1,000 questions flooded Serena's mind. Why now? Why after all this time? Part of her wanted to hang up immediately, to protect herself from any more heartbreak. But the curiosity, perhaps even the last remnants of a child's longing for a parent's approval, kept her on the line. "I'm listening," she finally said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and something dangerously close to compassion. Victor inhaled sharply on the other end. "Serena, I'm so sorry. Please, can we meet?" She didn't respond right away. Outside, rain began to patter against the diner's windows, reminiscent of the stormy night he had sent her away. She closed her laptop, her appetite for work gone. "Fine," she whispered. "Text me the address. I'll come. But don't expect me to forgive you." She ended the call, her hands shaking. Miss Lila, who had been cleaning the counter nearby, saw the pale look on Serena's face. "Honey, what's wrong?" Serena swallowed hard. "My father just called." Miss Lila's eyes widened in concern. "After all this time?" Serena nodded, feeling tears threaten to escape. "He wants to meet. Says he needs my help. I don't know if I can face him, but I have to know why." Miss Lila rested a comforting hand on Serena's shoulder. "Go, child. Sometimes we need closure, or maybe we just need to see for ourselves how strong we've become." Serena gathered her belongings, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead. The little girl who once yearned for Victor's love was gone, replaced by a self-made young woman determined not to be anyone's victim ever again. 2 days later, Serena found herself standing outside an upscale cafe in a more affluent part of the city. It wasn't quite as luxurious as the neighborhood she used to live in, but it was far from the grimy streets she had become accustomed to. Her mind buzzed with questions. Why had Victor chosen this place to meet? Was he living here now? Where was Olivia? She exhaled shakily before stepping inside. The host led her to a private corner booth, where Victor sat nursing a coffee. He appeared tired, older than she remembered. His hair, once impeccably styled, was now streaked with gray. The expensive suit he wore hung a bit loosely on him, hinting at recent weight loss. "Serena," he said quietly as she approached. Standing up, he attempted to hug her, but she stepped back, arms folded. The rejection hung in the air, thick with unspoken pain. She slipped into the seat opposite him, saying nothing. Victor waited a few beats, then cleared his throat. "I know you're upset. You have every right to be upset." Serena scoffed. "That's an understatement." He dropped his gaze. "I won't make excuses. But I also wouldn't have asked to see you if it wasn't urgent." She sat in silence, her expression guarded. "Let him talk," she told herself. "Don't let him manipulate you." Victor toyed with his coffee cup, voice trembling. "Olivia left me. She took a lot of my money, made some risky investments, and everything collapsed. I lost the company and the mansion. I've been trying to rebuild, but it's tough." Serena's heart pounded at the mention of the mansion, memories flooding her mind. Memories of that cold morning when she'd been thrown out like trash. She forced herself to speak calmly. "Why should I care?" Victor's eyes glistened with a mixture of shame and desperation. "Because I'm your father," he whispered. "And I'm all alone. I need your help. Financially, yes, but also emotionally. I know I hurt you, Serena. And I know I have no right to ask. But please." He reached across the table, attempting to grasp her hand. She pulled away, words brimming with resentment. "So, you lost your money, and now you remember I exist? That's convenient." "I'm sorry," Victor repeated, voice cracking. "You can hate me. You can spit in my face. But I'm here, begging for you to give me a second chance." Pain and fury roiled within Serena. Part of her wanted to laugh in his face and walk away. Another part yearned for the father she'd once adored. But she refused to show weakness. Instead, she held his gaze, her tone steely. "I'll think about it." Despite her anger, Serena couldn't deny that part of her was curious. She agreed to meet Victor for dinner a few nights later, though every fiber of her being screamed that it was a bad idea. Still, she hoped maybe he'd show real remorse, something that would allow her to forgive, even if only slightly. He chose a modest Italian restaurant, far from the ritzy spots he once frequented. When she arrived, she was surprised to see Olivia there, perched next to Victor like a porcelain doll. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped impatiently on the tablecloth. Serena's eyes narrowed. "I thought you said she left you." Victor flushed. She did. But she came back recently." Olivia flashed a brilliant smile. "Serena, darling, it's been too long. Let's not dwell on the past, shall we?" The words crawled under Serena's skin. She remembered that smirk, the way Olivia had watched her leave the mansion without an ounce of pity. Now, she acted as if nothing had happened. For the first half of dinner, they made superficial small talk. Olivia complimented Serena's appearance, asked about her life in vague terms. Victor asked about her business, looking genuinely impressed when she mentioned investors and repair operations. But beneath their polite facade lay an undercurrent of tension. Finally, Olivia placed her hand on Victor's, turning to Serena with a practiced pout. "You must know we've had some financial troubles, dear. But your father told me how successful you've become. Maybe you'd be willing to help us get back on our feet." There it was, the real reason for this meeting. Serena set her fork down, her appetite gone. So, what exactly are you asking me to do? Victor cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. A loan. A modest one, just to help us stabilize. Then we can rebuild, and you'll get your money back, with interest, of course. Serena stared at him, then at Olivia. And what's in it for me? She asked coldly. We can be a family again, Olivia said, voice dripping with insincerity. That's what matters most, right? We've all made mistakes. Let's move forward. Serena's anger flared. She could see right through Olivia's act. But the temptation to turn them down outright warred with a subtle desire for justice. She imagined them squirming, depending on the daughter they had forsaken. When the check arrived, Serena stood, retrieving her wallet. Victor reached for his own, but she waved him off. I've got it, she said curtly. She placed enough cash to cover the bill on the table and stared at them both. I'll consider your request. But don't expect an open wallet just because we share a last name. Without another word, she turned and left, heart pounding. Outside, a bitter wind stung her cheeks. She felt both triumphant and sad. Triumphant because she held the power now, and sad because the father who'd once been her hero had become a stranger begging for money. That night, Serena lay awake, replaying every detail of the dinner. She imagined a scenario where she refused them completely, letting them sink. Another scenario saw her giving them money without conditions, an olive branch of forgiveness. But neither felt entirely right. By morning, an idea brewed in her mind. She dialed her lawyer, a contact Malcolm had referred her to, and spent an hour discussing legalities. Then she arranged a meeting with Victor and Olivia at a local law office. When they arrived, both appeared nervous. What's this about, Serena? Victor asked as they entered a small conference room. Olivia clutched her purse tightly, eyes darting around. Serena leaned forward, voice composed. I'm willing to give you a loan. But there are terms. She slid a contract across the table. It was thoroughly detailed, leaving little room for loopholes. The key clause was that the collateral for the loan would be the house they once lived in, now in disrepair but still worth a substantial sum if sold. Victor and Olivia exchanged glances. This is the mansion, Victor stammered. But we already lost it. It's been foreclosed. Serena smirked, meeting his gaze. I bought it at auction last week. Her heart pounded at the admission. She'd used some of her savings, along with a small loan from Malcolm, to purchase the mansion quietly. If you fail to repay me in full, the mansion remains mine. Actually, it's mine already. But if you keep your word, we can work out a deal that gives it back to you. Olivia's face turned an alarming shade of red. You bought our home? It wasn't our home when you kicked me out, Serena retorted. Now, it's just an asset. If you don't like my terms, you can walk away. Victor stared at the contract, hands trembling. You really did this? You turned into a business shark, Serena. Serena folded her arms. I learned from the best. Or maybe the worst. After a tense silence, Victor lifted the pen. Olivia shot him a venomous glare, but he ignored her. Swiftly, he signed the contract, then passed the pen to Olivia. She hesitated, eyes flickering between the paper and Serena's resolute expression. Finally, with a shaky hand, Olivia scrawled her signature. There, she snapped, throwing the pen down. Satisfied. Serena took the papers, expression unyielding. You'll have the funds in your account within a week. Don't be late on payments. With that, she gathered her things and left, leaving her father and stepmother to stare at each other in stunned silence. Outside the law office, Serena exhaled a shaking breath. She was in control now, a position she'd never experienced in her relationship with Victor. Whether it was justice or revenge, she wasn't yet sure. 2 months flew by. True to their word, at first, Victor and Olivia began making small payments on the loan. Serena didn't speak to them often, but she monitored the payments through her lawyer. She focused instead on growing her repair shop, which was thriving thanks to Malcolm's investment and her relentless work ethic. But then, the payments stopped. At first, Serena assumed there might be a delay. She waited a few days, then a week. Still nothing. She tried calling Victor, but her calls went straight to voicemail. Finally, she drove to the address they had given her, a modest rental property downtown. No one answered her knock, but she could hear hushed voices inside. She knocked again, louder this time. The door opened a crack, revealing Olivia's face twisted in annoyance. "What do you want?" she snapped. Serena pushed the door open, stepping into a living room cluttered with half-packed boxes and scattered furniture. Victor stood near a couch, shoulders slumped. The tension in the room crackled. "You owe me money," Serena said sharply. "Payments are late, and you're dodging my calls." Olivia rolled her eyes. "We're having some temporary issues, okay? Business setbacks." Serena's gaze darted to Victor, who avoided eye contact. "You never intended to pay me back," she realized aloud, her voice tight with anger. "You just wanted the cash." Olivia crossed her arms. "We needed help," she hissed. "We still do. That's your father. Doesn't family mean anything to you?" Serena laughed bitterly. "Family? You threw me out into the streets when I was a child. So no, that card won't work on me anymore." Victor looked up, guilt lining his features. We thought we could repay you, but everything we tried fell apart. Please, give us more time." Serena's hands trembled, but she forced calm into her voice. "The contract was clear. If you fail to repay, the mansion remains mine, free and clear." Olivia's face contorted with hatred. "You can't do this. We're your family." "You left me with nothing," Serena shot back, rage bubbling to the surface. "Now you have nothing. Consider this poetic justice." She turned on her heel and stormed out, ignoring Victor's plaintive calls. Once outside, she leaned against her car, tears stinging her eyes. She had never wanted to become this hardened, but she refused to be taken advantage of again. The following week, Serena went to inspect the mansion she'd purchased. Though the exterior still held a regal air, the gardens were overgrown, and the paint on the shutters had begun to peel. She felt a strange swirl of nostalgia stepping through the front gates. This was once her home, a place of both golden memories and deep traumas. To her surprise, she found Victor and Olivia waiting on the front steps. Victor's expression was tormented, while Olivia's was a mixture of defiance and desperation. "What are you doing here?" Serena demanded, her voice echoing across the empty driveway. Victor took a tentative step forward. We have nowhere else to go. We can't afford our rent. Please, Serena, just let us stay here." Serena gazed at the looming mansion behind them, the same building where she'd grown up. The memory of being forced out with a garbage bag in hand made her stomach churn. "You kicked me out, remember? You wouldn't even let me stay for one more night." Olivia trembled with rage, but Victor held up a hand to silence her. He fixed his eyes on Serena, tears threatening to fall. "I'm sorry," he said for what felt like the 100th time. "I was weak, and I listened to the wrong person. But I never stopped loving you. I swear." Serena's throat tightened. Part of her wanted to lash out, to scream that it was far too late. But as she stared at Victor, she recognized the frail figure of a father who had lost everything, including his pride. She let the silence stretch, each second heavy with unresolved pain. Finally, she spoke. "I've legally reclaimed the mansion, and I can do whatever I want with it. I could throw you both out right now, or I could board up the doors. But I'm giving you a chance." Olivia scowled, but Victor's face lit up with a glimmer of hope. "We'll do anything," he whispered. "Just don't leave us homeless." Serena led them inside, the echo of their footsteps filling the once luxurious foyer. She remembered the day she had been escorted out with no warning, the sting of betrayal still fresh in her mind. A part of her longed for revenge, to see them beg and suffer the way she had. Yet another part, buried deep beneath scars, just wanted closure. They stopped in the grand living room, dust motes swirling in a shaft of sunlight. Olivia stood off to the side, arms crossed defensively. Victor kept glancing at Serena, waiting for her verdict. "You have two choices," Serena said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "You can leave now, with whatever you can carry, and never contact me again. Or," she took a breath, steeling herself, "you can work for me. At my company. In entry-level positions, no fancy titles, no special treatment, and earn enough to gradually buy back your share of this house." The words hung in the air. Olivia's eyes blazed. "Work for you?" she hissed. "How dare you?" Victor cut her off, placing a trembling hand on her arm. "We'll do it," he said, looking at Serena with a mixture of shame and gratitude. "Please. We'll do whatever it takes." Serena locked eyes with Olivia, who glowered but remained silent. Olivia might have despised the idea, but she had no better options. Serena had all the leverage now. "All right," Serena replied, her tone hardened by memories of that first night on the streets. "Meet me at my office on Monday morning. And don't be late." With that, she left them standing in the dust-filled silence, hearts pounding as they realized the full magnitude of their decision. Word spread quickly within Serena's small but growing company that the new hires were none other than her father and stepmother. Employees buzzed with speculation. Some recognized Victor's name from the once prominent Monroe Enterprises. Now, he was just Victor, a trainee in the sales department. Olivia found herself in customer service, answering phones and dealing with complaints. Serena maintained a professional distance at the office, offering no special favors. If anything, she was stricter with them than anyone else. She wanted to see if they'd actually put in the effort or if this was just a ploy to bide their time. The transformation in Victor was undeniable. He arrived early, stayed late, and asked questions earnestly. He never complained about menial tasks. Whenever he locked eyes with Serena, she sensed genuine remorse, perhaps even gratitude that he'd been given a chance at redemption. Olivia, on the other hand, sulked constantly, complaining at every turn. She found the customers irritating, the workload beneath her. She often showed up late, offering half-hearted apologies that no one believed. Gossip spread that she might quit any day. On Friday afternoon, Serena called them both into her office. She'd never expected to become their boss, yet here she was, seated behind a polished wooden desk, scanning over their progress reports. Victor sat with his hands clasped. Olivia remained standing, as if too proud to take a seat. Tension crackled between them. Serena addressed Victor first. "You've shown improvement. I appreciate the effort." He nodded, relief etched on his face. "Thank you." Then she turned to Olivia. "Your performance is another story," she said bluntly. "Do you even want this job?" Olivia lifted her chin. "I'm not used to this menial work." Serena tapped her fingers on the desk, holding back a bitter laugh. "Neither was I when you forced me onto the streets. But I didn't complain. I had to survive." A flicker of guilt darkened Olivia's eyes before she looked away. "Fine. I'll do better." Serena studied her stepmother's face, uncertain if the promise was genuine. Finally, she nodded. "You can go. I'll see you Monday." Victor and Olivia stood. Victor cast Serena a grateful glance before ushering Olivia out. Alone in her office, Serena felt a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: disgust, pity, and a faint stir of satisfaction. She was no longer powerless, but was this truly the closure she needed? Months passed, and in that time, Victor steadily climbed the ranks of Serena's company, proving he still possessed a shrewd business mind when given a chance. He never asked for special treatment, never demanded a raise or promotion. Instead, he earned it through dedication and a humility Serena had never seen in him. Olivia, predictably, did not last. Fed up with lowly tasks, she stormed into Serena's office one morning and announced, "I'm leaving. You might think you've won, but trust me, I'll be just fine." Serena merely nodded, unimpressed. "Best of luck," she said, rising from her desk. "You can collect your final paycheck at HR." With that, Olivia stalked out, slamming the door behind her. A sense of relief washed over Serena. She had dreaded this moment, yet now it felt liberating. Perhaps it was best they part ways for good. Meanwhile, the mansion renovations continued. The property had been neglected for too long, and Serena supervised every detail. She found a certain catharsis in transforming the place of her darkest memory into something new, something undeniably hers. Victor observed from the sidelines, sometimes even pitching in with manual labor. The day the renovations finished, Serena invited a local news crew to do a feature on her rising tech repair empire, a feel-good story about a young entrepreneur who'd overcome adversity. As the cameras rolled, she showcased her workshop, introduced her staff, and spoke passionately about her mission to provide affordable electronics to underserved communities. Toward the end of the segment, the reporter asked, "What's your next big goal?" Serena looked into the camera, recalling every painful moment that led her here. Sleeping in a broken-down car, rummaging through dumpsters, betrayal by a friend, and the heartbreak of her father's abandonment. With a steady gaze, she answered, "To show others that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can always rise again." When the segment aired, it went viral. Viewers were mesmerized by her story, an underdog who turned her pain into power, ultimately building a multi-million-dollar business. Social media erupted with praise and support. Investors called, non-profits reached out, and people who'd once scorned her name now envied her success. And in the quiet aftermath of her newfound fame, Serena walked through the mansion's grand entrance. She found Victor in the living room, gazing at a family portrait from years ago. In it, a young Serena sat beside a younger, happier Victor. The image was dust-covered, a relic of a time before so much went wrong. He looked up as she approached. "I can't express how proud I am of you," he said softly. "You've done all this without me." Serena's throat tightened. She didn't seek his pride anymore. She didn't need it. But hearing it did offer a small healing balm to her old wounds. She nodded, unsure what to say, and turned to walk away. His voice stopped her. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." Without turning around, she replied, "Don't waste it." A month later, Serena found herself in a sleek media studio, sitting across from a well-known talk show host. The bright lights illuminated her confident posture and poised smile. Millions watched from their screens, eager to hear the full story behind the viral sensation. The host leaned forward, eyes wide with curiosity. "Serena, you've been through so much. Abandonment, homelessness, betrayal, and now you're a successful businesswoman. What message do you have for the world?" Serena inhaled, heart pounding, memories flickering across her mind like a film reel. She recalled the cold wind blowing through the broken windows of that abandoned car, the taste of stale sandwiches pulled from dumpsters, and the sting of her father's rejection. Then she looked straight at the camera, her voice clear. "Never let anyone decide your worth. That's your job. People can try to break you or hold you back, but your value isn't something they can define. You get to choose who you become." Applause filled the studio. Somewhere in the city, Miss Lila watched the broadcast from her diner, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. Damon, leaning against a wall in an alley, smirked at the TV in a store window, arms crossed as he silently cheered her on. Malcolm Everett, in his penthouse office, smiled at the screen, reassured that his investment had not only changed a life but inspired countless others. And in the mansion he now rented from his daughter, Victor Monroe sat alone in the living room, remote clutched in his hand. His eyes lingered on Serena's face on the television, the same little girl he'd once shut out and betrayed. He lowered his gaze, overcome by a profound regret, wondering what might have been if he'd never let Olivia twist his heart. But for Serena, the uncertainty of those what-ifs no longer mattered. She had found her path, not just to wealth, but to a sense of self-worth that could never again be taken away. The interview ended with a standing ovation, and Serena left the studio feeling weightless, like the final ties to her past had been severed, or at least transformed into a lesson, a testament to her resilience. Her story continued to resonate far beyond that day. Clips of her interview were shared across social media platforms, viewed by millions who found hope in her journey. And while she never forgot the pain of her early years, she no longer lived defined by it. She had built an empire on her own terms, and in doing so, reclaimed her life from the shadows of betrayal. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.